Michael, just a question to you. I mean, do you acknowledge the work of religious groups in providing aid? Because, you know, the question is, would aid flourish without religion? Are religious networks essential to the delivery of aid and education? If you think about Africa, for example, the Catholic Church runs a third of all the schools on that continent.
Well, one of the things there that comment that Etna made about, I'm not sure that there are any atheists involved, is very inaccurate. I mean, Atheist Alliance International is involved in a lot of charitable work in Africa, including setting up schools that don't evangelise in any direction, and we would be as opposed to schools that teach that atheism is truth as we are to schools that teach that religion is truth. But if you go back to the official Vatican policy, which is the encyclical letter from 2009, it says that practising charity and truth, and Christ himself is the truth, helps people to understand that adhering to the values of Christianity is not merely useful but essential for building a good society. So that's the context in which they're doing it. Without that, what you would have is you would still have the same charity aid. Secular states provide more aid to the developing world than religious states. The same people that are involved in charities would still be involved in charities, but their motivation wouldn't be corrupted by things like opposition to condoms, promoting abstinence and only sex education, and evangelising alongside the charity. And then on top of that, you would be more likely to have the idea recognised that charity is not the best way to have dignity and rights vindicated. The best way to have dignity and rights vindicated is through respect for human rights.
Could I just come back on that point? Trócra's model is certainly not a charity one, it's one of justice. There's a huge difference. So we don't see that we give to others because it's the right thing to do. We see that we give to others because it's the just thing to do.
And to promote Christianity.
And can I just finish the point? Can I just come back to the point about HIV/AIDS and working with people living with HIV/AIDS? Because the truth is that 25% worldwide of the aid that goes to HIV/AIDS is actually from the Catholic Church. It's just a point of fact, and it's why, you know, this notion of Catholic social teaching, of liberation theology, is Trócra's founding document, is Trócra's founding mission, founding vision, and that's what we work to.
But do you promote the use of condoms to fight AIDS, HIV?
No, we don't promote the use of condoms because we are a Catholic agency, so therefore
do you oppose the use of condoms?
We don't actually provide condoms because we teach. We are a Catholic agency.
But do you oppose the use of condoms? Do you discourage people from using condoms?
Can I bring this back to HIV/AIDS and people living with HIV/AIDS, and we always get driven down this line of condoms, and it's such a narrow perspective. But we need to think about...
But just, Ethna, for many though, it's not a narrow perspective, in the sense that it's a proven way to prevent HIV and AIDS. And is Catholic social teaching and Catholic theology preventing you from doing that?
People at the point of delivery of aid have free choice, so they make up their own minds about what they do. As a Catholic agency, we do not distribute condoms. However, where I would like to move the living with
HIV... Do you discourage people from using condoms?
I think the listeners might like to just hear this.
Well, yes, but I do think it is important, because up until now we've been given the impression that it's indiscriminatory in terms of how you do your work in developing worlds and helping the poor. But this is a very specific example where your Catholic theology and your belief system does impact on the work that you do. So I suppose, to ask Michael's question, do you oppose the use of condoms?
I would really like to answer that by saying that it's much more important that we look at awareness raising, education for people. It's a proven fact that if you educate young women, for example, to read and write, that they can actually then access the information that's necessary for them to manage their own health. So I would much prefer the conversation is about something much broader, which is the whole remit of people living with HIV/AIDS. How can you have, for example, a government programme that's about free antiretroviral drugs if you don't have enough food to give to people, because if people are hungry they can't absorb the antiretroviral drugs? So Trócra looks at it in a much more broad, holistic way.
Okay.
Condoms are one element of it.
Julian, what do you make of that?
Well, I think it shows a lot of the complications. I mean, Ethna has sort of basically not wanted to answer directly the question of whether or not they oppose them. But of course, in a sense, you're bound to. And I think the problem here is that this is a sense in which it's a very difficult balance, because whether you're evangelizing or not, you approach an issue like this, overseas aid or overseas development, whichever you want to call it, from an ethical perspective. So, of course, you're going to bring your broader views of what is necessary for people to live thriving, good lives to that table. Now, you don't have to do that, and often people don't do it in a strongly evangelical way. But clearly, you know, as an atheist with certain values, you would be promoting those values, and those values would include things like individual sexual freedom, for example, and that would be seen as a good thing. Now, it just is a matter of fact that people's fundamental moral values do vary according to their religion, and so that is inevitably going to affect the kind of aid that is given. And I think for that reason, people do have a good reason. It's not necessarily about, you know, condemning in a kind of an aggressive way people who are promoting things which you don't think are for the better good. But if you want to have that argument, and I think that certainly someone like myself would say that for all the good work done by Catholic organisations in the developing world, the teachings on birth control and use of condoms is harmful, and therefore I would, you know, want to encourage people to support alternative charities. And I don't think you can get away from the fact that, you know, we all have to make these judgments based on our values, and there isn't such a thing as a value-neutral aid agency.
Ethna.
When we work with people in the developing world, you're not working with people who are actually hanging on your every word. They make personal choices themselves. We come with our aid package. It's non-judgmental. We do not convert. We do not ask religion. We meet the need where we see it, as we say. And after that, people make up their own mind. People in the developing world are smart. They're intelligent. They make decisions. They live their lives according to their moral codes. And Trócaire gives them the freedom to do that.
Yes, but you don't get this. But the range of choices you give them obviously is going to be affected by the thing. So they can make up their own minds, but they can't make up their own minds whether to take the condoms or not because they're not on offer. You see what I mean? So, I mean, obviously the range of choices being offered is going to vary according to the values of the aid agency. In a sense, I'm not saying you should be apologetic about that, but I think you need to recognise the fact that that is a set of values that need defending. And I think in this conversation, you're rather trying to sort of like, you know, set aside those contentious values in what you're doing and try understandably to make us focus on the shared values. But we can't pretend there aren't points of real division here which might affect which charities certain people choose to support or not.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
Michael,
it's quite legitimate.
Word,
I think it's quite legitimate for Christians and Catholics to say we are promoting aid and we're promoting it in the context of our religious beliefs and that Christ is the truth and that this is the message that we're conveying. But don't pretend that you're doing it value neutrally. And if people want to give on the basis of promoting Catholicism, then they can do it through Trócaire and other bodies. If they want to give without those values, then there's Doctors Without Frontiers, Red Cross, Red Crescent Foundation Beyond Belief, and indeed in Ireland, Atheist Ireland has a Good Without God's charity that is involved in those things as well.